Hello. Um, I've been getting a lot of storyboard modding requests lately, and I'm just going to record a storyboard mod I'm doing, so you can get an impression of what I do, and perhaps start looking at your own storyboard or other people's storyboards yourself a bit, so that you can improve the performance and the rankability. So yeah, I was asked to mod this map in my queue. And first of all, I'm just going to watch what actually happens. Okay. Pretty cool. It's like a flowery theme. That isn't just our classical, we have petals flying across the screen. Especially like the hit lighting effects, see these also with the variations. It's pretty nice. Okay. So generally speaking, what I'm usually doing is I check what effects are in the storyboard overall, and then I click at a certain element in the storyboard in that effect. And I look at the line here, and then I would open the storyboard in Notepad, and then I would jump to that line, in this case 26732. And now I can see here what actually happens and whether what happens makes sense or not. Well, for that you need to know a bit about the comments, naturally, but that looks very reasonable. Yeah. Only thing that's a bit weird is that the color comment here starts a bit earlier than the fade actually starting. So technically it's 100 milliseconds activity overdue, not overdue. So generally speaking, if you have a sprite, then you want it to be active only for the time it is actually visible. So in this case, it is visible from this time to this time. So anything before and after is usually, you should ask yourself, should this really start before or after? In this case, there's probably no need really, because there's an easing of 0, so no easing. So you could just, well, check which color it actually has at this time, and then replace this color with that value. But in this case, just 100 milliseconds probably doesn't really matter. For this is longer, but this has an easing, so this is okay because you can't really split that up due to the easing. So yeah, understanding easings and the comments is somewhat needed for this. Generally speaking, if something is really off, you will probably notice anyway, because there will be like a lot of duplicate comments that look exactly the same. Okay, so that looks reasonable. I'm not actually going ahead and check every single of these occurrences, like do it for this, and I'll do it for the one with the other sprite. Then I have these flowers. Okay. Storybrew particles effect spotted. Basically, this sprite fades in and out and then moves around. So are these falling sprites, I think. Yeah, now it reappears here. And then there again. You could put these in singular sprites. Instead would maybe improve performance or not. We'll talk about it a bit later. But the commons on their own look reasonable. It rotates, additive coloring, scales, smoothed. Let's check that one out. That looks nice too. Yeah. So overall, this is a relatively tame storyboard, but good design. So this is a bit different because here they're not rotating, they're just falling. So I checked that as well. Yeah, once again, storybrew particles effect spotted. Yeah, there rarely goes something wrong with that one. Yeah, this is all fine as well. Can check out these hit lightings too. Yeah, about as expected. These ripples. And they basically look the same. Oh. Okay, this comment is not necessary. Because the moment it ends, it only starts getting visible here. So this could get removed. This would be enough. No, because you see end time, end, but it only starts getting visible here because we have opacity of 0. Okay. Way to loop. Yeah, this is the sprite I want. 25730. Okay, similar here. This ends here, but the fade only starts there, so this movement comment is unneeded because you have another one here already that puts it in the correct place. I think the color comment in this case is also unnecessary because it's the sprite should be completely black. Yeah, but this is minor. It doesn't hurt if it stays there. This is just high level nitpicking. Can just stay there, no problem. Okay, aside from that looks good. Press move. actually just the background sprite, but I'm still going to take a look. Ooh, interesting. So that is interesting. Okay, so that's this one. Just keep changing the color for that. This is mildly confusing in terms of design, because like the color it ends on here does not match up with this color here, and because the sprite is black in the first place, this coloring effect shouldn't have any effect in the first place. Because black is 0, 0, 0. Huh. This probably doesn't really make sense. Not entirely sure, but this should probably get another look. Because this is one sprite, it is active for the entire song. It starts here and ends all the way at the end. And because it has, well, not that many, but has quite a lot of comments, like, yeah, 250 roundabout. These are always getting processed, like, every single moment of time. So it might be a slight performance gain if you just removed all these color comments. Because I really think these are probably unnecessary. Although I did not actually want to look out for those. I wanted to check how this was done. Okay, but I think this is just this background fading out. Yeah, this background is just fading out here, and it's also just in the spot, and instead gets reused at a later part. It's the proper way to do it. That's good. I just undo everything I did just here. And this is the other background. I assume same thing for this one. Yes, good. We already had this one. Oh, actually these particles should still get checked out. It's a bit different from earlier in usage. Okay. This is storybrew particles effect again. They just show up in some place and get scaled a bit over time. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, now this one. It's actually pretty interesting with the crisscross motion. At the bottom, this looks a bit more chaotic. Usually, if you just have particles like flying from bottom to top, like you see in many storyboards, it's pretty boring actually. But this adds like a bit of chaotic movement. Looks a bit better, although looks sometimes a bit weird of how these like go there, and it looks like they vanish for a moment, I think. Actually going to stance and can scroll a bit more with more precision. Now you have this goes down. Now you have at in the same place something goes up, or here actually for this one. I notice this looks not completely smooth. Would be cool if it would like do a slight curve so that it isn't so abrupt, but more like, well, you know, smooth curve. So let's look into that. Oh, I think I mistyped. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, so here we have a problem. We have like these 5 move X commands, and they all start at the same time. So obviously this is a conflict. Where do I actually move? Obviously we start at this coordinate, but do we go here or there or there? The reality is we just use the last one, so we go here and these could all go. This repeats itself throughout because it's the storybrew particles effect. So in this case, the sprite has like, well, about 100 commands. Like if you add it up, this is like 5 unnecessary commands. If we move this here and there, and there, there. Oh, actually, let me think again. Okay. So this is a bit weird because of easings. Well, this is always the stupid stuff with overlapping comments because it is very difficult to understand what actually happens here. So this has an easing. That means it doesn't go linearly in a straight line from here to here, but I think 2 is in, which means that it slowly starts going to from -2 to -4, and it slowly accelerates until it gets faster and faster until here. But because it has different values here, it suddenly probably teleports somewhere because this ends here at this point. And when this comment is over, then for the other 23 milliseconds until this comment is over, it would jump to where it's supposed to be according to this comment, I think. And then the same again for here, and this would result in this sprite teleporting. In this case, I'm going to take a closer look. This is like at 95068. And things should get messy starting from this point on. So you see, now it goes here, and now it goes there. And then it teleports over there, and then over there. and then over there, and then it finally starts going up. We're going to watch the playback rate. Okay. Don't know if this is intended. Like, it looks pretty fishy to me. It's probably part of what makes this bottom part look so chaotic, but I don't know. Look at this at full speed again and unmark this. So unmark I said. Oh. I don't know. That's at least questionable. Like what actually happens here. This needs a review. Whether it needs to be changed or not, this is in the hands of the storyboarder. But this is something I would definitely bring up in a mod because it's just weird. That's really just weird. And yeah, overall, if you look at this, we have 5 comments here and 3 there and 5 here. So overall, if you add this up, this sprite could probably have half the comments. And if you add this up over all these sprites that are present here, which is probably like 50 or so, then it's suddenly 2,500 comments, more or less, active, which can make a slight impact on performance. So yeah, this is interesting to say the least. Okay, this is a new ripple. That's different from the one before. Okay, same thing. Wet area earlier already. This comment is not necessary, but doesn't kill the storyboard in terms of performance at all. Oh yeah, and we have these go in reverse. That looks alright. Okay, we already had this effect, so I'm not going to take a look at it again. Actually, I should probably look at these that do the slider follow. It's probably Storybrew hit lighting, but just taking a look. Yeah, seems good. Seems good. That's probably literally the same as the other, but I'm still looking because different sprite. Okay, same thing as usual with the color. This could be just go to this color because, oh no, never mind, I'm blind. But this could start here instead and have this value different, but it doesn't matter because it's so little that it doesn't make a real difference in terms of performance. Okay, now we have the flashlight here. It's here again. Oh yeah, it has a lot of movement commands. About 140. It's probably alright though, because it should just be that one. Probably look at these. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so overall from that part, nothing really wrong, aside from this one being a bit weird. So that one should get reviewed in terms of the teleporting. That's actually this other thing. Well, as I said earlier, I think it looks a bit cool, but if you like take a closer look, it's a bit weird. I don't know. In terms of efficiency, this should probably get split up into singular sprites because you can clearly make up that this appears and that then disappears and it starts again. Why is this interesting? Basically, what OC does for performance is you have like this list of sprite 1, sprite 2, and sprite 3, and OSU kind of pre-processes these sprites in a way that it looks when is the first time that this sprite becomes relevant, like the earliest start time of the comments, and when is it no longer relevant, so the last end time. And so you have like start time here, end time here, and the duration from start time to end time is like the active time. So during this entire duration, Osu keeps looking out for the sprite, and this happens for all of these. So the difference now between having like this, can take it this far, and instead having just going to copy this. Okay, that was this one. I'm just going to move the last one because it doesn't really add. Okay, so let's just get a fourth one, call it sprite 4. So let's say this is our sprite 1. In this case, earliest start time is this one, and the end time is this one. So our active time is from here to here. And this is important because Osu is, according to what I know, not very smart about managing commands. So let's say we are at like 191,000 in time. So Osu looks at its sprites and says, oh, this sprite here is active. And then it goes through the entire command list to check in what state it currently is. Because, well, it would be possible, like if I had a color command at the start, I don't know, like this. Oh, I'm missing a time. So something like this will be possible. And because I need to know what color I'm supposed to render, I need to look through the entire commands to make sure I didn't miss the color I had before, for example. So essentially, Osu needs to go through the entire list, even though all these commands are not relevant yet, because like the time here is obviously after this, so these are technically not relevant. But Osu still needs to pass them because there are things like implicit values. So let's say this color command didn't exist here, but let's say I had the color command here, let's say with this time, and implicitly, because it has this color at this point, and only one color command, then the default value, take this with a grain of salt, default value would be 255 in all three. This implicit value is getting overwritten by this one. This is also kind of similar in the case earlier we had when we have a color comment. Come on. When we have a color comment before this. So let's say this is like here, much, much earlier. But, well, in this case, it would already be visible at this point in time because the first comment here says 0.6. But, say if I remove this one, and it's not visible because the first fate comment has 0 as the argument, so Osu kind of thinks, okay, because 0 is our initial state of fate, then at this point in time, our sprite is not visible yet. So Osu has to do some weird kind of seeking through the entire comment list, and the more comments you have on a sprite, the more performance it takes. So the difference now is, if this is our sprite 1 and this is our sprite 2, in this case, this would only be active from here to here. Technically, this is a special case because this is like active for the entire time, but it would be no problem to say we add this comment for each of these cases separately. So for example, in this case, this would be like this. Okay, now for this, it will have to stay. Come on, what am I doing? Okay, so here it could be like this, because parameter comments always have a set state. No changes really, either it's on or off. And here I could basically extrapolate this to something like this. Okay, so when we have it like this, this is then our sprite 3 and sprite 4. Okay, so let's put this here, and this one too. Okay, so this is like our case 1. In this case, we have from 22 to 50, this is like 28 commands. That means 28 active commands for this entire time, these for 6 seconds roundabout. 6 seconds. I'm illiterate. Okay, so and in this case, we have like 10 commands active. For round about exactly 2 seconds actually. And it's exactly the same for these. Okay, so let's say again, I'm at this point in time. If I use it like this, like sprite 1, then Osu needs to go through 28 commands to find out how the sprite is supposed to get rendered and displayed. If you use this other approach, with the sprites split into the logical segments, like it appears at one place and then another place again, and completely isolated, then at this point in time, Osu only has to go over 10 commands, because it knows, oh, this sprite and this sprite, they are not active yet. I don't actually need to check the commands for these sprites. And so at this point in time, it's like 3 times the load that Osu needs to do. If you have this just like once for one sprite, this is usually not an issue at all. But if you have a particles effect like here, where this happens for dozens of sprites, then you can suddenly have a rather big impact on performance. Because for all this time, this sits up. I counted this earlier. This is like about 100 sprites. And then we have, okay, this is like 100 sprites. No, 100 comments per sprite. And we have I don't know. Oh, that's just that thing. 50 sprites. That means during the entire iteration we have 5,000 comments that need to be processed. This just really adds up. So if I did this differently, if we count this again, we have like 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to do an SD search, so this is easier to see. Or maybe just like this. Come on, Notepad. Okay, Notepad doesn't want to show me these things. Okay, counting manually again. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 segments. So we have like, just making this up now, we have 11 segments with 9 comments each, plus 1 parameter comment for the additive color. And if we divide this into segments, like I did here in this example, then we have 11 sprites with 10 comments. Just say 9, because we need to put the parameter comment separately for every one of these. If I check at that point in time, then I have 10 comments per sprite. Again, because I only had 50 sprites active at a time here, this is going to be the same here. 50 sprites, 500 comments that need to be processed. So this is like suddenly 10 times the load. So this kind of sprite recycling saves a bit of file size because you don't need to re-add this parameter comment, or this can get a bit more excessive for other effects, so that you have to re-add a scale command, color command, whatever again. So this can blow up a bit. So this saves a bit of file size doing it this way. Saves a bit of file size, but in terms of performance, in OSU this is actually better. This is the better way to do it. So unless you can't upload your storyboard anymore because of file size constraints, then you should always seek to do this instead of that. So naturally, there's also a small cost for having to go through more sprites for OSU, because it needs to check more sprites for the active time. This also takes a bit of time, but compared to checking the time for, I don't know, I think in this case you would have like 550 sprites total. If it additionally needs to check these sprites, then it's like, okay, I need to check 500 values here and 500 values here, so maybe in total this is like 1,000 checks, which is still like 20% of this. Say this is still a lot better performance, and especially if you have effects like here, where you mix particle effects even. This just adds up. So yeah, this is like something to really consider for particles effect, and also especially for spectrums. If you have spectrums, then it's usually one sprite has easily 3,000 commands, and that's why spectrums always lag. And that's why you shouldn't use spectrums without care. And particles effect as well. So doing it this way, it's relatively easy in Storybrew to achieve this instead of that. I think I'm just going to show this quickly. God, I'm blind. There. Okay, so this is my favorite test project. Just a lot of stupid stuff in here. Okay, let's check out the particles effect. I probably messed a bit with this one, but should be all right. Okay, it's already in here. So Storybrew works with the sprite pool thingy, which is something to reuse sprites, which I already mentioned is not optimal. It actually doesn't always do this, but you can influence this behavior through this max pool duration property of the pool. You can use this after this using block. And basically what you do here is you set the time in milliseconds that a sprite can remain unused in the pool before a new sprite would be created instead. So per default, I think this is set to 1 minute. And if you just say, okay, I set this to 0 or whatever small value, then the sprites won't get reused and you will get exactly this. So yeah, that's the way to fix that problem with performance. Okay. So much for that. Other fancy things you can still do is to search for T, comma. We don't find anything. That is to search for trigger commands. Rarely used feature, but you can potentially find unused ones, and triggers are always pretty bad for performance because essentially the hack with triggers is if you have a sprite that has a trigger, sprite 5, then automatically the start time is the storyboard start, and the end time is the storyboard end. And Osu needs to consider all the comments for the sprite for the entire storyboard, which can be pretty bad. So if you have a sprite with a lot of comments and a trigger, it's usually quite a performance killer. If it doesn't have many comments, it's kind of okay, but if you have too many sprites of that kind again, it's a problem again. Well, interesting feature. Okay, another thing we can do is to check for the sprites. This, for example, is this resolution really necessary? Like, this seems pretty big. It's actually in file size, times of file size is probably okay, but it just seems a bit, I don't know. Full HD is probably enough, but well. For the other stuff as well, this is skinning related stuff. This is also that big, but actually a low file size, so I'm probably not going to complain. Okay. These are full HD, that's good. actually look kind of... Are these the same? I don't think so. Oh no, this is the blur. The blurred version. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, you can sometimes find particles that are excessively large. They are always scaled extremely low to the point it really doesn't make sense. Yeah, in terms of size, this is probably all right. Okay, so then for the end, I'm going to show a small tool I made. Didn't look into that yet. You can find it on my profile, and basically what it does, if it doesn't crash, you can run like this via command line. And it drops two files you might have already noticed or not in here. It searches if it can find the OSB file in the map folder. If it doesn't, it probably crashes. It's not too well coded. And then you find a comment graph. And this attempts to plot the active sprites, active comments. So this refers to the figure we had here, active comments, against the visible comments. So the green line are the active ones and the red ones are the visible ones. And ideally the lines completely overlap. In this case, you can already see they are very close together. So overall, there are no effects that are really wasteful. If it's really wasteful, you can have like, I don't know, you can have stuff like this, where they diverge a lot. Then it's wasteful. That's a pretty good indicator. You have to be a bit careful with these times. They are approximately correct. I'm not sure if they actually go here or there. I struggled a bit with this graph drawing thingy, or if they are actually here, but I don't think they are in the middle. But like it's a rough approximation where you have to look for problems in the storyboard. So overall pretty good. What you can see too here is same actually goes for this one. This might not be that exact value, but it should be in that region. You can also see like this part, this is the biggest spike in active commands. So if you want to optimize your storyboard, you probably want to go here and look at like whatever this was, around about 5 minutes. Okay, yeah, so here's a lot of action. Might want to check here, does it lag here in gameplay? And is there anything in these effects that we can improve in terms of how many comments they have, or if there are like particles like that? For which we can use this technique I showed earlier to reduce the active comments at a time. So that's a pretty good indicator. This also exists for sprites, how many sprites are active. Relatively similar. The sprite graph isn't as important as the command graph, unless you really use a lot of sprites at the same time. So in this case, there are no more than 100 sprites active at a time, which should be completely safe. But I don't know, if you have like really a lot of sprites, like approaching 1,000 or more, at the same time, then it might be problematic. So once again, can also be used as an indicator. Usually looks quite similar to the command graph, but gives a different perspective whether there are many comments or many sprites in use. Sometimes we have a lot of sprites with little comments. Sometimes we have a few sprites with a lot of comments. You can sort of compare these and check what the storyboard roughly does. And last but not least, what you already saw here, it creates a storyboard warnings text file that attempts to, well, give you an indication of things that might be wrong. So it always gives you the line in the OSB. So for example, prolonged activity warning means there is a sprite that has commands that exceed the time that it is actually visible by 150 milliseconds, which is still needs to be fixed for equal to 7% of the active time of that sprite. So once again, we can use that to go like to that line. And yeah, we can see here the LED starts fading in this time, but it is already active from this time onwards because this is the earliest start time. And you can see from this to here is 150 milliseconds. So in this case, if this gets removed and you run it over again, then that warning wouldn't appear anymore. There is a warning level with these. This is something that gets calculated somewhat, well, not really randomly, but taken with a grain of salt. So it's indicative of how grave the issue is roughly. Warning level 1 is 1 is like whatever, usually doesn't matter that much. But you can go like, okay, are there any warning level 5s? In this case, no, this is good. If we look again, warning level 4, yes, 38. Then you can look at like, okay, this case we have conflicting commands warning in this line. You could once again look here. Oh, this is an indexing problem. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. So these start and end at exactly the same time. So one of these is definitely obsolete. This is like a, well, this is a sprite we already identified as a problem, the particles effect, but here it's even more funny because the end times don't differ, so it's not actually teleporting, but one of the comments actually doesn't matter at all. But if we go through these, we'll probably find that these are pretty much all the same, except for, yeah, like completely time overlapping. Yeah, so that's a tool you can use to find such things, partially, not always. And yeah, the warning level is a bit indicative of mistakes. There's actually nothing wrong with having a lot of warnings. You just, well, I don't know, I usually ignore everything below warning level 3. Warning level 3 is somewhat interesting. The others are usually not too problematic. It's just like for information. If you want to optimize it, can give you an indicator, but having warnings doesn't mean the storyboard is not rankable. So after you take care of the particles effects in the way I suggested, then this should be perfectly fine to go into ranking, even without fixing these small things like I showed earlier with the 150 ms active time thingy. So just for indication. So in this case, we have like more than one warning. So in this case, fade out warning and prolonged activity warning often come in, well, as a pair. So if we look here, we see that this sprite is faded out here. Yeah, actually not entirely sure. Should warn about this one. Okay. Yeah, I think in that case, for example, it overshoots the end with these comments. So if you check, you can like see, okay, this uses an easing. So in the time from here to there, this easing is actually relevant, and we can just like say if we do this, then the visual changes. So in this case, this warning could be ignored. Well, it's really mostly for indications. So what I like to do is just search for level 4 and level 5 and scroll through. Sometimes you have one sprite with like hundreds of warnings that are often level 2 or something, which often happens if you have like redundant commands of the same kind that do exactly the same. So yeah. This tool is, well, already mentioned it, somewhat likes to crash too. You can find the link on my profile in the storyboard modding part. There's also GitHub. We'll probably push my current development state to it because I'm, well, the current version that I use is a bit less prone to crashing, but it's not really where I wanted to get with it. But well, it starts to get exceedingly difficult to develop because basically when I want to find problems, I always have to assume that the storyboard I get is an entire mess, like really an entire mess. So thing we had earlier, like here, if I get something like that, then just determining where my sprite is at a certain point in time gets rather complicated. And if I want to check like advanced stuff like whether a sprite is off screen or whether it is obstructed by other sprites, which are things that I originally had planned, become very difficult to calculate. But at the same time, this is exactly one of the things I want to find. So, well, kind of got stuck in the development and will probably just, well, do a few more adjustments and then leave it as it is. So yeah, if I do a really quick mod for a storyboard, what you can do is also just running the tool and check, has it a lot of warnings, how do these graphs look? It's a good indicator of whether something is completely broken with a storyboard. That will be apparent very quickly, but you can't rely on it on finding everything. So if I'm modding a storyboard, I'm usually still going through the storyboard like I showed before, because this tool doesn't find anything. It can help you in like finding the absolutely worst stuff. But especially when it comes to some kinds of optimization that need a bit more knowledge, or things that are a bit weird in terms of design, you can sometimes find things by going through everything manually that this tool absolutely won't ever have a chance of finding. So yeah, for that reason, I would always suggest to always take a look at the storyboard. Does it look good? Does it make sense? Like things with the particles here. Switching to 1/16th, if something looks weird, just take a look what does actually happen. Mark something down. There's usually a lot of things to see, and you can also get some inspiration sometimes how people did things. Pretty cool. So yeah, overall, pretty good storyboard. I think with the particles change, it should also perform reasonably well. And yeah, nice theme. Good job, I think. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Yeah, can't think of anything else. So yeah, I guess thank you for watching. And yeah, I hope you get some insights on how you can mod storyboards, and that this will help you in creating storyboards in the future and optimizing them yourself, so players can actually play your map with storyboard on instead of just using cinema mode. Well, that's it. Thank you.